Boaz, you want to tell us a little bit how you got into Ibogaine research and how you stumbled across this amazing medicine?
I was living in Washington, working for from all places, the military section of the Israeli embassy in Washington. And I had a friend who had a car service business in New York City. And one day he showed up with a guy. His name still is Bob Cisco. He came to Washington to meet the Gabonese ambassador to ask him to if they can buy Iboga, if I remember correctly, right? That's why he went to the embassy. And he stayed over at my house. They both did, my friend and Bob Cisco. And that time, he had serious addiction problems. Cocaine and alcohol and nicotine. It was the first time I spent time with a drug abuser. It was shocking to me. I'm talking about maybe 85. And he was talking about this African plant and shrub that he was going to take, and it's going to fix all his problems. And I thought the guy was totally off the wall because he was also talking constantly, 20 hours a day or something like this. And I, basically forgot about it. And then I saw this Bob Cisco, which we are friends, Norma, Howard, and Cisco, and myself. We were together very, very close for a very long time. I saw him a few months later after he's taken Ibogaine, and I was shocked. I was amazed that this is the same individual that he was over in my house, disappearing to the bathroom every few minutes, snorting and doing alcohol and 3 packs of cigarettes every day. And on top of that, he became ultra religious, after the Iboga experience. That's not a very positive side effect, but otherwise he was completely transformed. And I started, and then I met Howard and Norma in the Lower East Side. Bob Cisco had, you'll see some pictures, had a basement apartment. That's where the action was. And I met Dana at that time also. It was a real dump, but there was so much good going on in this real dump. It was amazing. I saw many...
Number 9 forever.
Yeah, number 9 was at Cisco's place. I'm talking about now. 9 Blicker was another dump with many good benefits. But and then I started to hang around, and some drug abusers came by, and Cisco and Howard and Norma and everybody sat with them and explained them, and I was just watching. And then at some point I moved to New York, and we started shuttling drug addicts from New York to Holland. Why in Holland? Because the Ibogaine was, we couldn't get the Ibogaine into the United States. And Holland is a very tolerant society to social and medical experimentation. And the first time I was involved in the treatment was in a 1-star hotel or half-a-star hotel, I'm not sure, in Rotterdam. With a guy, 5 minutes after we arrived, he disappeared, to cop. He's doing fine now. And from that time on, I personally was involved with Bob Cisco with iCash. He started iCash, International Coalition for Addict Self-Help, talking about 1988 and further. And then there was NDA International, a new drug application that Howard started. Howard had, after the discovery, he thought, I'm going to go, this will change the world, which he was right. But he wanted to go not for profit. This is so big, this is so important to humanity. There's no business model here. This has to be not for profit. It was very difficult throughout the years, but in these years also to raise money. And then I figured, we must start a company to develop it as a pharmaceutical. And so we flew back and forth, Pakistan Airlines from New York to Amsterdam. Why Pakistan Airlines? Because for $400, you can fly back and forth from New York to Amsterdam. And if you don't have any problem with the goat smell in the airplane, we lived through it. And we had some Dutch drug abusers that we treated in squatters in Amsterdam. Marconi Cafe, right? That was the place. We treated them for free. For every individual we treated who paid, we tried to bring in someone who couldn't afford to pay. And once it was introduced to the Dutch scene in the late 80s, there was a gentleman by the name of Nico Adrias, who was unfortunately passed away. He was a Dutch pioneer. I don't know if anyone knows him. He gave it to some people in Rotterdam, and it caught on like wildfire. You know, there was among the drug abusers community, there's something we can detox with from heroin. There's no withdrawal, basically hardly any withdrawal symptoms. And then Howard went to the University of Erasmus in Rotterdam, found a researcher, Jolich. He says, try this on some mice. And Jolich was actually the first, I think, modern study. The first was on in Canada. So and the results from Jolich on the mice on the elimination of withdrawal symptoms, if I remember correctly, Norma, were very good. And then he tried it on cocaine in mice, and repeatedly it showed benefits and abstention periods following Ibogaine administration. So we have pictures. Are we going to show some pictures now, or later, or what?
Later.
Later, okay.
Yes, or you have a presentation for now?
I don't know, whatever is the program, I'm not sure.
I think later.
Later, okay.
Yeah.
So, and then Norma and Howard and myself, we went to the FDA, of course, with the different data that was in existence, and went to NIDA. We were a bunch of activists. For example, one day Dana Bill suggested, why don't we storm NIDA? Like, we have nothing to do Monday morning, let's storm NIDA. So the idea was we sent some people to Washington, D.C. We hung some posters around NIDA saying that thousands of junkies are going to storm NIDA asking for Ibogaine in such and such a date. Yes? On, let's say, December 15th? No, July 5th. Okay? And then we got two vans from New York full of people. We took a suite. Why do we take a suite? Not because there wasn't much money, because in one suite you can stick like 30 people, Everybody came with their sleeping bags. And next morning, I don't know if it was morning, we go to NIDA. There were maybe, 200 policemen waiting for, around NIDA to protect NIDA from drug addicts seeking Ibogaine. And we made it to all the press in Washington, D.C. And so these tactics of activism and how to promote an idea and ideology was always part of this movement. We had to work underground doing Ibogaine treatments for a very long time until we were able to persuade some doctors to join us. Immediately it was understood that we need doctors on board. I was in the group, I was the quote-unquote medical authority because I did a medic course in the military. So for a long time I was the highest medical authority in the Ibogaine movement for I don't know how long. And it felt very alone and a lot of responsibility until we got Dr. Jan Bastians, Professor Jan Bastians. Jan Bastians was a Dutch pioneer.
3 more minutes.
2 minutes.
3 more.
3 minutes. Each one of us can talk 3 days here, so you have to let us know when the time is. Jan Bastians was a Dutch pioneer, a psychiatrist, who treated Holocaust survivors with LSD in the late 50s. His grandson, Udi Bastians, who's a doctor, is a third-generation doctor, will be coming here. And he was the first doctor, and we did some treatments with him in Leiden, in Holland. And I myself went back to Israel in 1994, continued to do treatments underground, in hotels, in apartments, sometimes alone, sometimes with doctors. And there's more and more stories. There's the visual history of Ibogaine that you will see sometime later. And so it's a 30-year involvement for me. We are like family, and Norma and Howard and myself and Cisco and Dana. And it's very sad that Howard is not with us to see the great interest of his discovery around the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Boaz.